Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are on this planet of ours. Welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. I'm Steve Smith, your host as always. This is EP number 5. After a bit of an extended break with a 2-part episode that was number 4, I hope you enjoyed the news and the couple of segments that I had there. The first part 1, followed by an interview with Ross Flanagan from the My Love of Golf podcast on part 2. I do hope you enjoyed it. Had to push that out a little bit because it was quite long. Wanted to give you something that you could listen to without it being too strenuous for your ears. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Also been doing some renovations at home at the moment, preparation for baby. If you haven't seen some of my Instagram posts in recent times, the wife and I are looking forward to bringing into the world our first child. So very, very exciting at home, but we're doing a few things at home. So I haven't been able to do any recordings of late. So the 2-part podcast for EP4 sort of worked out quite well. Gave me a little bit of time to get to recording number 5. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking through Walking the Fairways, talking through all the bits of news that I can find out of what's going on throughout the golf courses in this wonderful country of ours, being Australia. Going to touch on the Greenkeepers Shed. Today's episode or today's segment of the Greenkeepers Shed, I should say, is going to be talking about bunker sand, something that hopefully will give you a few pointers when you're out there in your game, playing around, what to look for, what to feel for, and ways to try and assess how to play the bunker shot that's going to be laying out in front of you throughout your round. So hopefully it'll give you a bit of an insight and something to be able to take out there with you and improve your game a little bit. And to finally touch on, going to catch up with Nick from AirSwing Media again, see what he's been up to since we spoke to him a number of weeks ago, and looking through the lens of AirSwing and seeing how seeing a bit of the work that Nick's been doing and what he's been able to showcase around through this difficult time we are in COVID. That's a bit of a wrap of the intro. Let's get into Walking the Fairways. Walking the Fairways, July 10, 2020. Now, I'd had an absence during episode 4 of my podcast, but COVID-19 has gone straight back to the number 1 headline. Shit's getting real down in Victoria. Cases have gone seriously north so fast. Been a sharp increase in cases down in Victoria. So there's a lot going on there. All sorts of weird stuff's going on with government regulations state to state and everyone getting worried about what's going to happen. But the long and the short of it is Melbourne Metro has been locked down for 6 weeks. Now, that's a long time. Last time was just 4 weeks, but 6 weeks this time. So, it's all a little bit crazy right now. Victoria as a whole, the state of Victoria, has then been locked into itself. So Melbourne Metro is locked down, and the state of Victoria, the rest of the regional part of Victoria, has now been locked out from going interstate to anyone else. For the first time in 100 years since the Spanish flu pandemic, the Victorian New South Wales border, that is the Murray River, has been closed. So no one is allowed out of Victoria and no one wants to go in. So we wish you guys well, but we've basically cut you off from the rest of the country. Look, no, it's pretty serious. We don't want these cases going north, and we certainly don't want another spread throughout the country. So everyone's working hard on trying to contain things, and we want everyone to be safe. So the Victorian government have made their stance. The rest of the country and the states have done theirs, and it's pretty serious. But the long and the short of it is that there's not a lot of movement going on in Victoria. Everyone's been asked to stay home basically, and Metro is pretty serious lockdown. But with that, there's no travel for golf interstate. So, I was even meant to be with the wife going down for a little baby moon to down to Melbourne, but that's not happening. Luckily, we cancelled that. And so there's no travel. But you know what? You guys have some shit-hot courses down there in Melbourne, whether it be Sandbelt, Mornington Peninsula, Bellarine Peninsula on the western side. You probably don't need to travel anywhere, to be honest. So let's not worry about it. And hopefully, as it stands, you can still play golf. So the rules that have come in, that what I've found is that you're still allowed to play golf as part of outdoor recreation and exercise. which you didn't have in the first lockdown. So that's a really good bit of news for you in Victoria. But you're back to 2 per group and 1 person per cart. So the good news is you're still able to play golf. So that's a bit of news to take on board, which we like to know because you guys didn't get that luxury like most of the rest of the country did. So now you can still play golf, but that's a very good thing. But the short version is there's no transport, no travel, and we certainly want you to stay safe and stay healthy. Fingers crossed, as sharply as the numbers went up, we want to see them sharply drop back down in Victoria so that everyone can start to come back out. And there's a whole lot of things that will go on with this. There's going to be financial hurt again and pain. And look, we want things to come out as fast as possible. And with that financial hurt, it's going to affect the twin towns that are along the river, one being on the New South Wales side of the river, one being on the Victorian side of the river. Now, those twin towns, there's quite a number of them along the length of the Murray, and they share economies. They share lots of business, lots of people travel between the two. And take, for example, Tokemore Golf Club. They have just announced that they're going to postpone their championships. Now, they've obviously got, I think it comes down to the fact that they do have a lot of members that travel from the Victorian side of the border to play golf that are members at Tokemore. And I dare say that decision has come from giving everyone a fair chance to compete in this year's championships when they do eventually get to host them, hopefully, by not having it now. So they've got people that won't be able to travel across the river into New South Wales to compete in the championship. So they've said, look, let's just postpone things until we can have the majority of our members be able to compete this year. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully they'll be able to host that this year. But look, there's going to be some financial stress outside of Victoria because of the way that business and everything trades and movement of people and money flows and all that sort of stuff. And there is going to be hurt to clubs and golf clubs. And no one wants to see that any more than we've finally started to come out of it. But look, watch this space. Everyone stay safe, but we really need to do what we can where we can, and just be mindful that it's still going to be a tough road. It's still going to be a tough road for a lot of people, and we wish everyone well. Going to bounce around a little bit now. I'm going to shoot off to Tasmania. Now, Arm End Golf Course. Not sure if you've heard of Arm End. You might have heard of its name. It's a new golf course that's in it's completed the planning stages. It's been given approval. It's an exciting new golf course in Tassie. So Golf Strategies are a design firm of duo Neil Crafter and Paul Mogford, who you might have heard of. And they're responsible for the design of this new golf course. It's going to be located at Arm End Recreation Reserve, which is near Opossum Bay in Hobart. Now, this course looks to be a very exciting and interesting new course development that I think could see itself inserted to the pointy end of any of the Australian top 100 course lists. So, that's where I see it. I'm going on the plans that I've seen, going on some of the computer imagery that I've seen, the location, looked at it on a map to see where it's situated and how it looks in the lay of the land, that sort of stuff. This thing looks sensational. So keep your eyes peeled for this one. Keep your ears to the ground. If you hear the words Arm End Golf Course, your ears should prick up and you really should start to take notes. If you read it anywhere, hear about it anywhere, even just go and Google it. So look, I'm saying keep your eyes out for it. And if you're going to go searching online, you can find some of the computer imagery, which I've seen. It's got some of the views of the course and some ideas of what it'll look like. Very, very interesting indeed, and one to watch, and we'll see how it unfolds. Look, COVID has had a hit on a lot of things, a lot of developments, a lot of works being planned, a lot of works that had started in golf courses and new golf courses and all that sort of stuff. So we're not sure how this one's going to go yet from what I can read and what I can find out. But Arm End Golf Course, like I said, Neil Crafter, Paul Mogford, it looks the goods in the planning and on paper. I'm certainly hoping it will be. But even if you just go and look at where it's situated down there in Hobart, this is a good one. Going to stick with Tasmania and some of the murmurings coming out of Tassie still. And another new one that I've come across is at Country Club Golf Course in Launceston in Tasmania. Now, Launceston is in the northern part of the island state of Tasmania, whereas Hobart, like I talked about with Opossum Bay and Arm End. That's down in the southeastern part of Tassie, but Launceston's in the north. Now, Country Club Golf Course is part of the Country Club Casino and Resort there, and the golf course itself is a Thompson Woolveridge design, and unfortunately both of those, Peter Thompson and Michael Woolveridge, both of those architects are sadly no longer with us. They've passed on. But as a Thompson Woolveridge design that was built back in 1982 as part of the resort's construction. Now, Country Club Casino and Resort is owned by the Federal Group, who you might have heard of because they own the Rest Point Hotel, which is in Hobart, and incidentally, or Rest Point Hotel and Casino, which incidentally was Australia's first ever licensed casino. Strange that it was in Tassie. Not sure how or why, but anyway, that's just a side note. Basically, Country Club Casino and Resort, they are getting involved, or they are getting a team involved to look at redesigning the golf course there, and they want to get a bit of a name involved. So from what they've said, and the reports and the news articles are saying, that Bow Welling Design is a design partner of Tiger Woods, and that's the team that are looking at doing a redesign of the golf course, which the family-owned Federal Group are looking at doing and planning a major redevelopment of the whole resort casino. So it's a big deal down there. Now, they part of that whole redevelopment, they want to include the golf course, despite the economic fallout of COVID-19. So this is throwing everything in the face of what we're looking at and what we're staring down the barrel of in regards to COVID. So, like I said, the family-owned company at the Federal Group are keen, according to all reports, are keen to make this thing happen, this redevelopment and redesign. Now, maybe that's because they're thinking of being ready for when life changes out the other side. I don't know, but they do a very good job, very good business people, and they've said that this is what we're going to do. So the redesign is also set to include a number of new golf holes, obviously on top of a redevelopment and redesign of the existing course. So Bow Welling Design, I don't know that firm, being a partner of Tiger Woods. So look, you're going to get some. That's a pretty big name to be involved, and maybe it's on the back of, what's going on down there in Tassie and King Island, and we've got Barnbugle, you've got Cape Wickham, Ocean Dune. So Tassie is really, really putting its name as like a second destination for golf in Australia. You've got the Sandbelt and the Mornington, and then you've got Tassie. Look, it's perfect climate, perfect location for all that sort of stuff. I don't know the site at Country Club at Launceston itself, but if you've got these people involved, and it sounds like the Federal Group know what they're doing, or certainly they want to create a big bang, that's going to be another one to watch down there in Tasmania. So keep your eyes on that one too. Country Club Golf Course in Launceston. Now, this is a roughie. I'm going to mention a name to you. It's further up the coast of New South Wales on the Mid North Coast. Not sure if you've heard of it. Not sure if you know what it is. It's at a place called Coffs Harbour. Beautiful town, Coffs Harbour on the coast. It's called Pacific Bay Resort. I don't know if you've heard of it. I've heard of it because I've driven past it. People in rugby league, fans of rugby league, might have heard of it because that's where often you'll see some of the pre-season training camps for some of the national teams in the NRL. You might have even seen that the New South Wales State of Origin team have gone there to do their pre-tournament training as well up there. Not very muchly known for golf. That's good grammar, Steve. Not very well known for golf, but I had a follower send me a couple of photos online about Pacific Bay Resort, and I've got to tell you, I had to ask some questions as to whether they were real photos or not. Like I mentioned, Pacific Bay Resort's located on the north side, or it's located in Coffs Harbour. It's on the north side of Coffs Harbour, and basically Coffs, for those that aren't so sure, if you're not local to the east coast of New South Wales, it's basically halfway between Sydney and Brisbane on the Pacific Highway on the coastline there. Now, Pacific Bay Resort has got a 9-hole par 3 golf course. I've known that it's had that, but I've never been there myself. It's never really been talked about, to be honest, by many people in and around Coffs, because if you go to Coffs Harbour, the only place you really talk about are 2 courses. There are more, but 2 that are well known. One's Coffs Harbour, is a 27-hole golf course. but the other one is the big daddy called Bonville Golf Resort. Everyone knows Bonville, considered the Augusta of Australia because of its beauty in the forest there. But no one ever talks about Pacific Bay. Well, I can say this to you. It turns out that Pacific Bay, about 2.5 years ago, received some new owners. And with those new owners, it received a new lease on life. Turns out that it's now owned by none other than Bonville Golf Resort itself. So the people that own Bonville own Pacific Bay Resort now, and they have done for a couple of years. They've been working on it. It was formerly the Novotel Pacific Bay Resort and had this 9-hole golf course. And to say the least, it was sort of became more or less just a bit of a hit and giggle appendage to the resort, basically somewhere for people to play golf. I've since done a little bit of research and heard some long history of it all, but the long and short of it is now it's basically the well-experienced team of Bonville are lending their hand to the crew that are looking after the course there in the grounds. And I suppose it's probably no doubt that the 9 holes has turned into something quite remarkable in terms of presentation. Now, it's a short par 3 course by all accounts. Beside the point, it's a bit of fun, but the quality has gone north of very good from what I hear, and it's something to behold. So I'm gonna throw some pictures up on Instagram, and I think you'll be surprised. Even I was surprised. I couldn't believe it. So I'll do that. Go onto the Instagram account, have a look, and see some of these images. But basically, a couple of the holes are a bit of a homage to some famous holes around the world. One of them in particular, and it's the 9th here at Pacific Bay, is a throwback to the 17th at TPC Sawgrass. It's an island green. This one has 2 bunkers, but it's just an island green that's raised up out of a lake, and it looks mind-blowing. It's got the logs and everything holding up around the soil, around the green surrounds. It's so well done in the photos. I haven't been there myself to have a good look, but it looks incredible. And apparently it is a lot of fun. So Pacific Bay Resort is something that I never thought I'd be talking about in terms of something that's really good to want to go and play, a little par 3 golf course. Now, they are around, these par 3 courses or little 9-hole courses. You've just got to find the good ones. And I'm not saying that they're all bad, but certainly if you come across a good one, it's worth sticking to and having a game at. So look, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, if it's done well, I personally don't care how we get people to play golf as long as they enjoy it. And, it's just another good thing. I'm really, really impressed that Bonville have taken over the resort there at Pacific Bay, and they've really brought all the grounds up, and they've brought this little 9-hole golf course out. I think it's a wonderful thing for certainly for Coffs and for anyone that's up there holidaying. It's a very popular holiday area, Coffs Harbour and the surrounding townships. And it's just another one that just adds some good for golf to get out there and play. So if you play Bonville, you play Coffs Harbour. I know Sawtel's there, another good country golf course as well, by all accounts. I haven't played Sawtel myself. But now you can add Pacific Bay Resort, a little 9-hole golf course. If you've got kids, you take them up there, teenagers, younger kids, who knows what, maybe get them out there on there. It could be a lot of fun. And some of these photos look like they are a hell of a lot of fun. So one to keep in mind, Pacific Bay Resort at Coffs Harbour on the Mid North Coast of New South Wales. Still in New South Wales is a place called Tallwoods Country Club. Now, you may or may not have heard of Tallwoods. Plenty of people, as it turns out, haven't. And there's certainly a few out there that have. It's at another beautiful holiday spot on the Mid North Coast of New South Wales near a township called Foster Tuncurry, Twin Towns. And Tallwoods has had a checkered history. But the reason Tallwoods gets a bit of a start is twofold. I recently had a trip up there with a couple of guys to have a round at Tallwoods, but also they've received new owners. And those owners have owned the property of Tallwoods and some of the surrounding area for about 18 months now. And I got to have a bit of a chat with them on the phone, and I met with them at the golf club as well and had a bit of a talk to them just to get a bit of a feel for, what they're wanting to do, the way that they're looking at moving forward and what they're hoping to build out of Tallwoods. And I was really impressed. So these owners have had it now for about 18 months, like I said. I've got to tell you, they're going to be breaking down a lot of barriers to bring Tallwoods back to its former glory. And, they've done some things, like they've rebuilt all of their bunkers. They've got nice new sand in them. They're very well playable now. I really enjoyed them when I was out there playing. They've got their irrigation system back up and running in good working order as well around the course, so they're able to maintain the golf course. But they've got a long way to go. But Torwoods is something that a lot of people probably had heard about that was going backwards really badly, and it has done previously, probably 5 years ago or so, from what I'd heard. It was a place to steer clear of, but like I said, new owners, having been there myself, thoroughly enjoyed it, and they've already started doing quite a bit of work on course. They've got some new paths around, new fleet of golf carts for players, so there is a lot going on. They've invested a lot of cash, and one to keep an eye on, Torwoods for sure. But if you've been in the area and you've never seen it before, well and truly worth a visit. And if you've been there 5 years ago or plus, it's probably somewhere you want to go back and visit just to see where it's looking to move forward to. And I think it's going to be one to keep an eye on personally. So Torwoods Country Club, there near Foster, Diamond Beach, and that sort of thing around that area on the Mid North Coast. Certainly one to keep an eye on in Walking the Fairways. They've been doing a bit of work behind the scenes and a little bit under the radar. With finishing off Walking the Fairways at Torwoods Country Club there at Foster, I thought that would lend straight into Steve's Corner again. I did a random one last episode, in episode 4 of Steve's Corner, talking about golf courses and, how relevant they are, that sort of thing. Yeah, I thought I'd do a random one about Torwoods, to be honest. Just something a little bit different based on my experience when I went up there. And like I said, Torwoods, the owners are doing quite a lot of work. They're at the start of investing a lot into the property, into the golf course, and rebuilding it up to, but like I mentioned, become what it once was, bring it back to where it was in its glory days. And a little bit of background about Torwoods is it's the only Herds and Fry design in Australia. Now, if you know that design firm, if you know that name, you might have heard of places like Erin Hills, maybe, in the States. It's a reasonable golf course that a few people have probably heard about. You might have heard of the Devil's Pulpit and the Devil's Paintbrush in Canada. And they've certainly done quite a plethora and a large portfolio around the world. But in Australia, Torwoods has been the only one that they did there. Now, this might come across as, me talking it up or a bit of an ad for Torwoods, or you can take it how you choose. But I will say this. My visit to Torwoods recently was a somewhat reluctant trip. It was a day trip. You might have seen I've posted a few things about it on Instagram and Facebook, but I wasn't sure whether the 3.5 hour drive from where I live to Torwoods and back, 3.5 hours each way, I might add, and 18 holes there for a day trip was worth the effort. So I had to do a bit of research, and I phoned a few people in the industry and spoke to some people that I knew that might have played there and that sort of stuff, or know the area in terms of golf. And honestly, every single person said to me, if you're going to drive that far for golf, don't go to Torwoods, go and play somewhere else. And their recommendations were Tuncurry, which has a fantastic name in the area, at Foster Tuncurry there, Tuncurry Golf Club. The other one was, if you want to drive a little bit further, go to Nambucca, or, if you're up that way, go to Bonneville, because that's a little bit further again. But at the same time, every single person said, look, I don't know anything recent, but, anything that I've heard in years gone by is that it's just not worth the effort. Don't go there. Avoid it. I've had people tell me to avoid it like the plague, to be honest. So it was really difficult to, in the end, say, yes, let's go. But I'm really, really glad that I bucked that trend and those comments, because and don't get me wrong, I've heard a lot about Torwoods over the years, and I had wanted to go because it's a Herds and Fry design, and that's a very good name in design world. And I wanted to see for myself what it was like. Now, condition can plus or minus a golf course in your experience. If you play a really good design golf course in terrible condition, you won't want to go back. And likewise, if you play a golf course that's just an average backyard design, without being rude, but it's in immaculate condition, you'll have a great experience as well. It can lift your experience. So condition certainly has a play on your experience, but Torwoods was sort of in between for me. You've got to consider in particular, the summer that we went through for any golf course that you play that is not, I suppose, hasn't got a few dollars in the bank, hasn't got a large ground staff and greenkeeping team, and hasn't got the infrastructure to fight the summer that we've been through and the weather conditions we've been through, even the floods and the heavy rainfall and high humidity we had at the back end of February. So you've got to have a few dollars there to apply your fungicides and your tools in your equipment bag to maintain the golf course that you're at. And Tallwoods doesn't have that. They've gone through and they're coming out of a lot of struggles. But this summer was particularly bad because, as we all know, the Port Macquarie area, Foster area, there was a lot of really large bushfires in that area. And so much so, I had a good conversation with the owners at Tallwoods, and they said to me that this summer, not only was it the worst summer and the driest summer, but they were in the fortunate position, but equally unfortunate, where their dams were a water supply for a lot of the surrounding houses and properties. So they were glad that they were able to assist the firefighters and the helicopters and the tankers with supplying them with water. So the choppers were in, they emptied out all the dams basically and used all their water to fight the nearby fires as much as they could. So at the end of the fires, when they were eventually extinguished through natural rainfalls and changes in the weather enough to put the fires out and bring the conditions back to something that's considered normal, they had no water. So they'd gone through this horrendous season like everyone else had on the East Coast, but they had no water at the back end of it when the temperatures dropped into March. So, into February, until the rains came and filled them up. By then, the damage had been done on the course. You could see there's plenty of scars around on the fairways and the tees, and likes to see how difficult and how dry it was and that they'd lost plenty of grass. So, look, but when I played the other day, it was only a couple of weeks ago, there was grass coming back to a lot of areas at the same time. So I could see what they'd gone through. But that said, it wasn't that terrible. Sure, there's plenty of bare areas, but the greens, and sure, there were some weeds and greens, that the owners of the property really impressed me to the point where they said, Steve, we know how much work has to be done on this course. We know the name that we have to fight through, the bad name that Tallwoods had for the last 5 to 10 years or whatever it was. They said, but we're committed. We know that we've got to invest a lot of money into this to bring it back to its former glory, and that's what we want to do. So they're working on a core group of staff at Tallwoods on the golf course, core group of greenkeepers, starting with the superintendent that they have there. And I believe two of the people, including the superintendent, have been there for a long period of time. So they know the course very, very well and how it survives and how it lives and how it operates. So they've got a good core in there, which is great. They understand that there's a lot of work involved moving forward. And the owners, they're even, these are people that like to get their hands dirty. They're out there helping. They want to be part of the process. So that they don't sit back and watch it all happen. They're out there in the thick of it, trying to make sure that they can give every bit of effort that they can to bring this place forward. So the owners impressed me, which was great. But I've got to tell you, what really impressed me was the design. I seldom walk onto a golf course and walk away with a smile on my face from ear to ear because I've had so much fun. And Tallwoods gave me that. I really wanted to find that at Tallwoods, but in the back of my mind was, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. And so I honestly was almost prepared to be disappointed, but to see the fun that was built into that design, into that course. I mean, you've got par fives that are uphill at 430 meters. And I was looking at it going, this isn't a par five. You know, what is this? But when you get to the tee, you're reading the scorecard, you get to the tee and you stand there and lift your head up and you go, this could be different. And I'm hitting driver just to get it all the way up because I like to go for the green for two, just because I can, drive off the deck. Who doesn't like that bit of fun? But that was the thing about it. There's so much fun. There's some things that are just hidden from sight. Some things that are, you know, you can't, that depth of field. I love when architects put a real mess with your eyes and depth of field, and your brain just can't quite break down and understand the distance and where things are. And as you stand over the ball, you're really sitting there going, is this really how far it is? Because it looks like it's twice as far. Or the opposite occurs. You sit there and go, is it really 150 meters? Because it looks like I can underarm it there. And they're the really good things about Tallwoods. So if you do, look, I'm just going to say it, go to Tallwoods. If you're up that way and you're thinking about playing golf, sure, you're going to go to the stalwart courses like Tuncurry. Sure, you're going to go and play, the Nambucca Heads Golf Course, and sure, you're going to go to Bonneville. You play Taree because it's got a very good name for a town, a country town course as well. But don't miss Tallwoods. Value for money. I'm struggling to think of one, I've got to be honest, that because it's really good value at the moment. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it was exactly, but I was, my group and I, we sat there and looked at each other and said, how good's this? Because we got carts and food and all sorts of things. So beside the point, but yeah, value for money, it's great. Don't walk on expecting to walk on to a place like, a Royal Sydney or a Twin Creeks or Condition Wise or any of these places, even the lakes or anything like that you used to play, even a long reef. The condition and the quality of the golf course is not there yet. But like I said, speaking to the owners, they said to me, we know we're in for the long haul and we're prepared. We know we've got to invest and we're prepared. That says a lot. Now, they've just recently put in, I think it's 5, I could be wrong, it could be 6 new overnight cabins for play and stay on-site accommodation. It's just behind the 10th tee and the 12th green there. Really nice little view. Looks down the 10th fairway towards the lake, likewise coming back up the 12th. Really nice situation where they're seated now, basically behind those holes. It's play and stay because it can be a little bit, if you can't get any accommodation nearby, it's good to know that you can do it on site, on course. So you can play a couple of rounds, have dinner in the restaurant, in the clubhouse, do all that sort of stuff. Look, it's setting up to be a very good facility overall. And as I said, in Walking the Fairways, it's one to watch. But I was just so impressed with the owners, so impressed with the course's design, and knowing that the quality is moving in the right direction. It's moving forward. Their bunkers have been rebuilt so you can play out of the bunkers. They're not hard, compacted sand that's been neglected for 3 years. The greens weren't slow, but they weren't super lightning fast either. They were good greens to putt on. I walked on the first green and had a putt, and I was like, you know what, these go all right. They roll well, they're smooth, they're flat, and the pace was pretty good. Yes, okay, there's a few weeds out there. Anyone can pick those, but they didn't affect my ball. I could still play golf, and I was confident standing over the putt. Same with on the fairways. There was one green that's got a problem, and it's going to take a bit of effort to fix, and that was the 17th green. But tees, I stood on a handful of tees on that golf course, and the 17th is one that I will not forget. Honestly, in all of my golfing travels, the 17th tee from the back plates is a tee that will stay with me forever. The view from there, especially the way you work around the course, is like, I can't think of one, and I've got plenty that I've been to, fortunately, that have got some wonderful views. But the way you play around Tallwoods, deep in below the canopy on a lot of places, most of it, you get a couple of elevated tees with some really nice views. But when you get to 17 and you can see the ocean, it's just a really big eye-opener. And I absolutely loved it. And there's so much fun built into that course. As it improves, you will absolutely love playing Tallwoods. And I look forward to when the condition gets to a point where I would walk onto it and go, what else do you do here? There's nothing left to fix. It's just the little finer details, So I say it again, Tallwoods, stop avoiding it and make an effort to go and play it. You will enjoy Tallwoods, I promise you. It's time now, ladies and gentlemen, for my favourite segment, the Greenkeepers Shed. And today I'm going to be talking to you about bunker sand. Now, look, they're sometimes artfully raked in a way you don't want to play your ball out of it, and other times you wish it was kept much better than it is so that you could play your ball out of it properly. Where do we go from here? There's two extremes, right? You often see one or the other. Maintenance of bunkers is often controversial, with some people pleading that it be done better and others saying it should be left el natural. I remember seeing Greg Norman not that long ago, it might have been a year ago or something, on his soapbox on online social media, banging on about the fact that bunkers should be left alone, not touched, no rakes. it's up to you to get the ball out. So if you land in there and it's all roughed up and it hasn't had any sort of maintenance at all, it's just whatever you get, you've got to deal with. But everyone looks at them differently. We know that they're a hazard in golf. Some people think that a definition of a hazard means don't touch it. But they're there. They're a key part of the game of golf as we play it. Look at a place like Whistling Straits, for example. It's got something like 1,200 odd bunkers, in inverted commas, bunkers, because that includes the wasteland style bunkers around the golf course. 1,200. I don't know who's meant to look after that. They must have some sort of, maintenance crew of 200 people to look after that many bunkers and keep them weed free and keep them all nice and looking good, even though they're still mostly wasteland. They're still got to look something like a presentable waste area, which requires maintenance, as I've said in the past. If you don't know what Whistling Straits is and their 1,200 bunkers, Google it. Trust me, it's been burned into my brain. There's some incredible images that come out of Whistling Straits. So go and Google it, see what you can find. Trust me, it's a special looking place. But that's one extreme. Now, just like John Laws once said, oils ain't oils. Well, so too sand ain't sand. The differences of sand types is almost endless. Take, for example, the fact that grass is planted on sand in a golf green, for example. And we do that because of the drainage properties of sand, effectively. But there's sand to fill your divots, sand for a golf green, sand in bunkers. So I want to talk to you about sand in bunkers specifically, bunker sand. You know there's a difference, but you just don't really know what it is. Can't put your finger on it. So what is the difference? Now, it comes down to particle size and shape. Yes, sand can be very coarse, but it can also be very fine, almost powdery-like. And some of that has an effect with moisture levels and things like that. Now you're starting to know what I mean. You're starting to see what I mean when I say those little bits and pieces. You can think in your head. You think of wet sand, it's hard. Think of very dry, powdery sand. You can pick the difference. Now you know what I'm talking about. So if playing out of a bunker isn't hard enough, the sand changes characteristics when it's wet, of course, like I mentioned. And that depends on the makeup of those structures and how they sit in each other and whether it's soil free and all the different particles and bits and pieces and how they work together, how they hold water and how they drain water. That gives you all your characteristics of your bunker sand. Now, the finer the sand, you often find it's much heavier to hit out of when it's wet. When it's wet after rain, or if the nearby turf has been irrigated, for example. But it can become extremely fluffy when it's extra dry. So if you're in a really dry season, low humidity in summer, often your fairway bunkers where they use less water in the irrigation on the fairways, for example, those are the bunkers that you'll often find are much more fluffy and powdery if there's a finer sand. There's even color choices when it comes to bunker sand for aesthetics. And when we did Katoomba, when I was at Katoomba, we wanted to find a very nice white sand for our contrast. We were looking for a certain feel and look of the golf course. We've all seen images of Augusta, for example, and they've got beautiful white sand as well. But then you get the yellow, earthy, tan sands, and I can think of off the top of my head Royal Adelaide, which I absolutely love that place. It's got a nice tanny, very earthy sand on the site that they're at. It's a native sand to the area. Even Duntry League in Western New South Wales, where their sand supplies come from, it's a very earthy colour as well. So there's different sands, different silica amounts. The percentage of silica in there will often give you that bright white colour too. So there's so many different components that make up the details of the sand. And some of the decisions come down to aesthetics as much as how you want it to play. So having said all of that, how does bunker sand affect your game? Well, those characteristics I just mentioned all have an effect on your game. When you start learning the game of golf, and hence learning how to play out of bunkers, you often get taught in bunker shots to wiggle your feet down into the sand. Give yourself a bit of a firm footing, right? So you don't slip too much when you're swinging the club for your bunker shot. You want a nice steady stance for your golf shot, so you don't move around too much. Well, you can learn a lot more when you do that little shimmy in a bunker when preparing for your shot. That's where you can pick up so many details. As you're not allowed to feel the sand with your hand or the club, the wiggle is where you learn everything you can in a bunker before your shot. That's the spot, that's the time to do it. You can feel its consistency, and by that I mean you can feel how wet or dry and fluffy it is, or how compacted the sand is or isn't. Now, this will give you an idea of how to play your shot. In effect, you're learning something about what's about to happen and how you're going to play this bunker shot. And what you'll be able to feel is you can feel how shallow or deep the sand is in the bunker. And that's a key because we want to know the depth of the sand. There's a dreaded issue for greenkeepers, and you should never be able to feel that if a bunker is shallow. It's I can't begin to tell you, it's the worst thing if a bunker is shallow. But this has a factor in golf, whether we like it or not, as most bunkers, all bunkers are man-made, but they're made on a soil base. Most golf courses are made on a soil base, not a sandy base site. They're constructed on soil, and that's very hard to create a bunker. Any course that's blessed to be on a naturally occurring sandy site is heaven's ground. I promise you, it's not all that common, and we certainly wish it would be. It just isn't. And because it's on a soil base, well, regardless of where it is, but because of the wind movement and water movement, sand moves throughout a bunker all the time with the weather conditions, and certainly with mechanical raking as well, even bunker raking, just with a hand rake. Golfers rake, we rake with maintenance. Sand is always moving around in a bunker. And, so all that has an effect on the maintenance, and eventually has an effect on what it takes to maintain them properly or not so well. So you've got bunkers that are maintained well and ones that aren't maintained very well at all, and poorly managed ones. You'll often come across the poorly managed ones because that's usually where you find shallow bunker sand. There's next to no sand. You walk in a bunker, it's really bad to play out of. And honestly, shallow bunkers, they're a bit like a German sausage. They're just the worst. I'm going to apologise for that in case you haven't heard. I'm soon to be a dad, so I'm pretty excited at the moment. It's getting closer and closer, and I thought I'd test out my dad jokes. Maybe that's enough of them for now. I won't do it to you again, all right? Now, an annoying inherent part of bunkers, man-made constructed bunkers on soil bases, is the fine soil particles from the sub-base that the bunkers are built on, and the soils that the bunkers are surrounded by, where you grow your grass in. Now, because what happens is when you get heavy rain, water infiltrates and washes down on those bunker edges where the grass is growing. That little lip you see of soil, that'll wash down into the sand itself. And you'll also get a bit of mix from underneath the sand in the sub-base of the bunker, where as it fills up with water, it brings the lightest, smallest, finest soil particles up through the sand and sits them on top. And then when the water drains back down again, you've got these fine soil particles mixed through the sand. And every time it makes it just a little bit dirtier every time. And I only mean a little bit usually. Often it's not noticed to begin with. Over time, it gets worse and worse and worse. But it's a little bit every time. Over a month, it's a little bit more. Then there's a few months, and over years, more fine soil particles mix through the sand, and that starts to get very dirty then. And those fine soil particles actually block the large pore spaces, which is the beauty of sand, that allows water to drain through it. They block those pore spaces, and that's when you often see bunker sand become quite brown over time. And that when it blocks those pore spaces, it doesn't allow water to drain very well, and they just basically become swimming pools, and you can go swan diving in them. We've all seen them on our local course where bunker sand doesn't drain anymore. It just fills up with water at the drop of a hat, and they're swimming pools, right? That's when it's a problem. And the sand just gets so full of shit and dirt, fine soil particles, and it's basically you create eventually brown bunkers, brown sand. Now, I'm going to call this out, right? This is a dirty old trick that sometimes poorly managed courses or lazy superintendents, and I'm just going to call it out. This is what happens. This is a little trick they do. They'll buy a small amount of new bunker sand, brand new bunker sand, get it shipped to the golf course, and they'll go out there and they'll throw a thin smattering of sand over the top of the old bunker sand. And it's all nice, shiny and white, or brand new yellow, whatever color it is, brand spanking new. And they'll throw it on top of the dirty sand. And they'll make it all look nice and fresh. and brand new. And usually they do that before a major event at the golf club. It'll be the championships, pro-am, tournament, something like that. And I'll throw it around over the top, and members will go, wow, how good do the bunkers look? They look fantastic. They're all redone. They've been rebuilt. This is great. But at the first sign of rain, everything mixes again and everything turns to a nice brown shade of poo. It's a filthy little trick, and I can't stand it. Clubs are so much better off saving that cash on 30 tonne of bunker sand. It might cost them $1,500 for 30 tonne of bunker sand or whatever it might be. They're better off saving that cash and spending the time during the cooler months, or when they get a bit of a break in the season, to go and aerate and redistribute the sand throughout the bunkers. At least then you'll get a few months of really good playing conditions, and water will drain a little bit better through that time before it starts to pack down again. How do I know about this dirty little trick? Because that's what I was shown by a superintendent during my apprenticeship. And I've got to tell you, it was the first thing I made sure I didn't do when I became a superintendent. I hated that. I hated when that happened. It was such a waste of cash and a complete waste of time. You're better off just overall just giving all your bunkers a full overhaul as best you can without having to buy any sand if you can't afford it. Just use your labour better. It's the other thing about the dirty bunker sand is that because it's now got so many soil particles mixed through it, it can now basically become very compacted over time. And this is not only from mechanical raking, but also from irrigation and rain. So it packs down. As it gets wet, it gets heavy, and it packs. It's the water underneath's got nowhere to go. Then the water in the sand's got nowhere to go. And it just really packs down nice and hard, and all those little sand particles really just get really Tetris-like and sit down nice and firm. And that's what happens when a bunker becomes really compacted. And it's really hard. We all know what that feels like. Think about when you go to the beach, right? Think about when you go to the beach, you walk onto the sand. The first part of the sand you walk into, it's really fluffy, nice and light. You can walk through it. It's really soft and it moves freely. Before you get down near the water, before you get into the water, that's when the sand gets really firm base. It's a really hard packed sand. And that's purely because of the way that it packs down with the water, and the water level underneath that sand that you're walking on before you get into the water, it's just so shallow to that surface sand you're walking on. And it's really packed down really well. Whereas the stuff, 30 odd meters before, further away from the waves, is really light and fluffy. So that's what water does to the sand. But it really packs it down really well. So you want to get rid of water as much as you can in a bunker. And once that soil gets in and mixes through that bunker sand, all bets are off. It's garbage. What I'm trying to say is all the bad things about bunkers comes back to the soil particles mixing with the bunker sand. This is why we love our bunker liners, because they keep those areas separated. You keep the soil down in your subbase away, and you keep your sand up on top away from each other. It's a layer, an impermeable layer for those two different types of particles to interact with each other and mix. And that's the whole point of them. It doesn't matter what they're made out of. Custom bind, capillary concrete, geofabric based materials, doesn't matter. As long as there's something there to keep them separated, that's what you want to do. Why do you think weeds grow so well in bad brown looking bunkers? Because they're starting to hold more water in those pore spaces. They're starting to hold a bit of nutrients now because it's basically becoming soil. It's slowly becoming soil. So you get more weeds. You can get weeds in brand new bunker sand, absolutely. But you'll get so many more starting to grow in bunkers that are poorly maintained and look like they're basically effectively nearly soil. They just germinate so much easier. It's, I can't begin to tell you how annoying and frustrating it is, but it's a management thing you have to do. And that's why it's so difficult to deal with aged bunkers. Bunkers need a lot of maintenance. It's just something that they need. And you can certainly construct them better to begin with, but they need a lot of work. They need a lot of work. And that's, like I said, that's why they're constructed these days with these bunker liners. It's such a good product. Any of those things are such a good product to use. It's fantastic. And, all golfers like bunkers to be as consistent as possible, certainly hole to hole, but even course to course now. People expect when they go and travel around from different course to different course that they can play on similar type of bunkers. But it's not always the case. Different clubs have different budgets, different labour forces. I've said this before about how clubs are different between clubs, but bunkers are a good indicator of all that. So with all this bit of information now, the best thing that you can do next time you're in a bunker is do the wiggle and try and get a feel for how the sand will play with your feet. So when you do the wiggle, you want to just try and feel as much as you can. Remember, heavy or fluffy, shallow or deep. Heavy being usually wet, and it'll take a little bit more effort to swing the club through the sand. It's going to be heavier and harder. So you might want to give it a little bit more juice and really just try and make sure that you follow through with your shot, with your swing. So make sure you get right through the ball and the ball will pop out nicely. That's really what you want to do in a heavy wet bunker sands. The other side of it is if it's light and fluffy and almost powdery, you might want to just wind it back a little. It's going to play more like a regular bunker shot that we all know, that certainly in Australia, that we'll play on drier bunker sand. It's gonna play like that. It's going to be a better, easier shot for the club to move through. So you don't need to muscle it through. Otherwise, you'll probably get a flyer. But the club's going to come through nice. The bounce on the sole of your sand wedge is going to be able to bring the club back out. It won't dig in, and it won't skim off the surface either. It's going to be able to play more or less like a normal feeling bunker shot. But you can feel that with your feet when you do the wiggle. If it's shallow when you do the wiggle, you're going to notice there's a little bit of sand before you start hearing scratching and all sorts of weird things with rocks and dirt, and you'll feel that your feet won't really move far at all. You'll sit there and you'll know you've hit the bottom, and let's just hope you don't hit any of those bunker liners, because that's a really bad thing. Any bunkers that are built with bunker liners of any type are always very, very good, so that shouldn't be an issue for you. But if it is shallow, if you notice you hit the bottom very, very quickly with your shoes, with your golf shoes, all I can say is you better get the rosary beads out and say your prayers, because you just don't know what's going to happen next. You just got to do the best you can and hope for the best. I can tell you that thing, but be ready, because you might just win longest drive. You might just win longest drive. When bunkers are shallow, there's a good chance it's going to come out hard, very hard. And finally, deep sand. Well, I say deep sand loosely because if it's a good layer of sand, even if it's 500 mil deep, it'll often be just a good feel. You might bury your boots if you keep doing the wiggle too far, but you'll know that there's plenty of sand in there. And, again, you still want to get through your shot. So the club comes out nicely, the ball pops beautifully. But that's, you're feeling for, like I said, all those bits and pieces to understand what's ahead of you. Remember, heavy or fluffy, shallow or deep. And of course, don't forget to rake up after yourself in the bunkers, please. Enjoy the beach, guys. Enjoy the beach. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the line, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I'm going to catch up with Nick from AirSwing Media. Nick, welcome again.
Good to be back, Stevie.
Mate, thanks for joining in. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. Always good to chat.
Absolutely, mate. Now, I wanted to pick your brains a little bit. We talk about photography, and I love talking about. I love seeing the works by so many different people, and certainly the stuff that you get around and do. What in the midst of COVID, and we know Victoria's being locked down again right now, and where everyone's cautious and conscious at the moment, albeit we've just sort of had this little brief. It's like looking at the sun in the morning and then all of a sudden it gets cloudy and overcast again. We've had this. Have you been able to get out in the last sort of few weeks and do much work, mate? Is there anything happening at the moment, or is it just sort of you're doing a bit of editing of some of your other stuff or planning some of your future stuff? Where are you at the moment?
Yeah, mate, look, so normally it's a bit of a really, really bad timing for me because kind of April through July, I usually go to Europe and do a fair bit of work in Europe. So unfortunately, this would have been my 5th year going over. And so unfortunately, for obvious reasons, I haven't been able to get there. I had some really, really awesome new courses to shoot. I was starting to sneak into Scotland this year. Wow. I'm pretty bummed on that front, but everyone's healthy and happy in the family, so that's a positive. But I'm just kind of editing. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of editing. To be honest with you too, I've kind of the last 2 years have been really full on. I think I think last year I was nearly away 30 weeks of the year.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah. If I was pretty much away a lot, and it takes a bit of a toll being away that much. And
For sure.
it has been, in a sense, it's been nice to recharge a little bit. But
Yeah.
I was just only saying this a couple of days ago to the better half that I'm really really missing being on a course. I've been playing a fair bit of golf at Byron Bay there, my usual Friday Arvo games with
Yep.
my mates. And yeah, so it's been good to play a lot. Obviously, I mean, I did a shoot at Tweed Heads. That was my last golf shoot was Tweed Heads Golf Club.
Okay.
So
Nice.
which I love Tweed Heads. It was
Uh,
a big favourite of my dad's. The river course there.
yeah, well, they're two
Um,
courses, aren't they? The river
there are
course
two
and
courses,
is it the west course as well?
correct?
Yeah.
And yeah, got good memories of there. Just always remember when my dad didn't want to play Byron, the first course he would say would be Tweed. So,
Yeah, nice.
yeah, I've been filmed there twice already, so I've got a good relationship with them there, and they're a great bunch of people. It's a great members club. Every while I was there, you always know it's a good club when every second person comes up and wants to chat and they're friendly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of my last golf course I've shot. So it's been a while, mate, but I'm itching. I'm itching for spring to hit.
Yes.
I'm poor old guys down in Melbourne now, back in the lockdown, so I won't be going into there for a while. But yeah, just itching, mate, itching to get back in there. I'm still trying to think about heading overseas, August, September. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just keeping everything crossed that I could possibly get over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can hear it in your voice, and I can tell that, like you said, if you're planning it all, like everyone had lots of plans going this year as they do for work and business and pleasure and all that sort of stuff, and everyone's been, the hammer's been brought down on the whole world, as we know.
Yeah.
Difficult times, but for you, it's obviously a business venture as well, and you've got these probably places. I know that you're big on Russapana and other places that you've been to in the past, but no doubt you probably had a couple of newies that you were looking at.
Yeah. It's
so
look,
yeah,
I'm really, most of the guys have said let's just put it on the back burner to 21. So I'm glad it'll still be there. So hopefully, yeah. So,
yeah, very good, mate. Well, look, and we look forward to that. Very good, mate. And look, I suppose with the COVID lockdown, like we said, we can't do a lot of travel. Everyone's traveling in their own states, as it were, when we're allowed to. And like we said, Victoria can't at the moment. And we touched on last time I caught up with you, we talked about that you did a little shoot at Moree Golf Club at the Central Western New South Wales, or the Northwestern Slopes. Let's, in our localised Southern Pacific bubble that we have, our friendly neighbours across the ditch in New Zealand, I want to maybe live a little bit through your travels over there, because we can't travel internationally. Let's talk about some of everyone knows how incredibly beautiful some of these latest designs, and I say latest, they're probably pushing 20 years old now, some of them, but the latest and greatest in New Zealand, and I'm talking things like Cape Kidnappers, Tara Edie, if I pronounce that correctly, the Hills Golf Club, Kinloch. There's some incredible places that I've seen on your account through Instagram and Facebook that you've been fortunate enough and lucky enough to go and be able to film for them. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to film some of those courses. What's it like, really?
Mate, I could talk about New Zealand for hours and hours and hours. I've always said I'm going to retire there too, because, mate, apart from, I mean, we've always got the Trans-Tasman rivalry, but
of course,
let's face it, the Kiwis are great people, and they're even better when you're there. Like, it's one of the most, it's up there with Irish hospitality.
I love the New Zealand hospitality. It's so
unbelievable, isn't it?
It's honestly like and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, because I love traveling out back in Western Australia, but it's like a giant country town. The whole country of New Zealand, everyone is so personable. They're so friendly. They're so laid back. They're welcoming and warm. It's just such a lovely country. It's the only international country I've been to, and I've been there a couple of times, not for golf, sadly, but just for travel. And yeah, mate, go on.
Mate, it's just, my favourite locations, sure, the golf course is always, it takes the center stage. But as an experience goes, when I go and do a job, if I look at the whole experience, I look at New Zealand, like every golf course I visited in New Zealand, they all have a very infectious GM.
Yeah,
The
okay.
staff are always good, and it's just it makes the whole shoot and the whole experience awesome. And I adore New Zealand, and I mean, it's kind of, I think I'm trying to think of which one was my first course I ever shot in New Zealand. I think it actually was Cape Kidnappers.
Yeah, that's a good starting point.
Yeah, it was good. It was. You can't get a bigger personality than Big John. So Big John, who is the GM there, director of golf,
Okay.
he's awesome. American guy, 6'8", I think.
Wow.
He's got the biggest bare hand you've ever seen. Like you shake his hand, he's so welcoming. You kind of, you walk up, whoever's been to Cape Kidnappers, the beautiful little clubhouse there, he welcomes you in, and, and the rest is history of that place. I mean, I've probably, a few people have asked me what my favorite photo I've ever taken is, and I was late last year, and I was staying in Napier, and it's not a long drive, but it's probably maybe a 20-minute drive from Napier to the gates, and then another 20 minutes up the hill. So I was waking up every morning, and it was really overcast, and I'd had a pretty bad run of weather actually over there, which for about kind of 2 weeks. And
well, isn't it the land of the long white cloud?
It is. But I've usually
say?
been very lucky, very, very lucky. But and I had beautiful weather the week before, but I just got this 2 days of just really bad weather. It was just bad timing. And when I got up there and I saw John, and John was like, "Oh, you're going to go out?" And I was like, "Oh," and it was belting. And I kind of said to him, "Look, I could get the best photo of my life today." So he laughed, and I went out anyway. I got pelted with rain, and then I noticed there was a gap. I put the drone up, and it started raining really heavily again. So I brought the drone back, and then I started driving back up 17, and something made me stop. So I went back down to 16T there out on the edge of the water. And it was just, I was getting these little fingers of sun just popping in and out and popping in and out. And I thought, look, I'll just get one more shot. Because there was so much drama with the clouds and what was going on, and you could see the rain coming. And I thought, okay, I've got about 3 or 4 minutes here. So I pretty much just, sorry, I'm just moving my car.
Sure, mate.
So, I pretty much just flew up. Again, rain absolutely pelted, and the drone was probably about 500 meters away, but I got it back. I got back to the Airbnb, loaded the photos up, and it's still to this day, I think it is my favorite photo I've ever taken. It just had that drama.
Mate, so you think that's the pick? You reckon that's your number one? Because I've seen that image on your profile, on your account, and it's almost like you said, it tells a story with the drama and those fingers of light. When I look at that image, it's almost like I'm watching a 1-minute clip, because there is so much in that image. You just stare at it.
And mate, the video's really epic of it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. The more I talk about this, the more I then think. So that trip was a 2-week trip.
Yep.
Now, I started that trip at the Hills, and that was a week before the New Zealand Open.
Oh, wow.
So the course was immaculate. They just built the par 3 course, and I saw Michael play it for the first time.
Yeah.
Sir Michael there. And so, but there's a photo there that probably goes really close to one of my favourites too. Obviously, Queenstown, it's just unbelievable. And I love the Hills. I desperately want to shoot Jack's Point.
Yeah.
I got to play Jack's Point about 2 months before I was filmed at the Hills, and I'm just gagging to shoot Jack's Point.
Yeah.
And then from there I went to Paraparaumu,
I've always wondered how you pronounce that. In my head, I'm like, is it how I think? Is it para? I've got it.
Mate, it's I've heard it pronounced a few different ways. I'm going with para umu.
Yep.
But yeah, Leo, the GM there, he is your quintessential infectious golf nut GM. Like,
I've seen him on Instagram actually.
Oh mate, ex-super, knows all his stuff. I think he did his traineeship at Royal Melbourne. You know, incredible guy. Anyone who's gone and stayed with Leo knows he loves 2-3 bottles of red wine. You know, he invited me into his house. And we just had an awesome night just talking golf. It was and the course to boot is unbelievable. Like, there's a photo I took there of like a full links course. I mean, it looks like a full links course, but it's completely surrounded by the town, and the more I think about what my favourite image is, a lot of them have come from New Zealand, because then from there I went to Kinloch.
Yes.
And Kinloch must be another one of my favourite courses.
Well, so let's just go back a little bit to Parapara because that's a very old golf course, and I can't remember if it's an Alex Russell course or not. But I'll leave that alone for a minute because I'm not sure. But
me too.
It's a very, very highly regarded golf course, and certainly it's been around a long time in New Zealand, and many events and tournaments have been played on it over the years. And then you jump you jump then to Kinloch, which is a Nicholas design, and Kinloch has again mega wraps and incredible reviews about it. Tell us about Kinloch.
Mate, Kinloch is where do I start? So, like Lake Taupo. That's not even pronounced right. But
we'll put an Aussie twang on every.
Yeah, we'll put the Aussie twang on it. Yeah.
There is.
It's got. I think the big course around there used to always be Wairaki, and then Kinloch came onto the scene. I haven't had the pleasure of. I've walked around Wairaki, and again another course I'd love to shoot, but I've been to Kinloch 3 times to shoot. And I think it's one of the most beautiful, beautiful courses. I think it's up there in kind of my top 5 for filming.
Okay.
Only the funny thing about it too is as we've had this discussion before, I look at a lot of courses too, not just on playability but the light. So you actually do lose it. So in the morning there's a huge hill to the east, and it takes a fair while for you to actually get the sun up over there. So on the back 9, it takes a while to get that sun. So I always feel like I would love to. I need to be there at a different time of the year because I've only ever been over there at the same time. Obviously, with the arc of the sun, you can film a hole in June, July, and then you can film that same hole before Christmas time, and you're going to get a good different degree of sun angle.
Totally.
So you can get totally different shots of courses. But as far as undulations go, I think it's just there's some holes there that just blow me away with undulations. Everyone I know that's played there says it's a really awesome course to play as well. It's got an awesome finishing hole. There's so much good. There's so many good courses.
Are the courses in New Zealand the pick of the bunch? Are they spread like the top ones, the biggest names that we know of in New Zealand? Are they kind of spread? Because we mentioned Kinloch, we mentioned the hills. There's Queenstown, which is I know the South Island. I've only ever been to the South Island, and like I said, I've never been to play golf, but I know the South Island because I travelled all around it. Queenstown sort of more or less in the middle of the South Island for want of an easy way of saying it. And I don't know. I know that Kidnappers and Cowrie Cliffs, and they're in the North Island. Where's Kinloch?
So Kinloch is about it's about 3.5 hours drive from Auckland south, up to about 4 sometimes.
So that's on the North Island.
Look, we haven't even we've only just touched the surface of North Island golf courses, but you can fly into Auckland. You can head north to, obviously, I'll talk about it soon, Tara Iti. And then that's only about maybe 2.5 hours.
Yeah, okay.
it's funny. You look at it on Google Maps and it says like 110 k's, and you go, "Oh, sweet, that's only an hour." And then you realise, yeah, New Zealand roads. But
yes, and they are different when they're country roads. Yep.
But it's a good run down to Lake Taupo. So you can fly into Auckland, you can drive down to Lake Taupo, you can then drive I think it's about another 2.5 hours down to Kidnappers, to Napier.
Right.
So,
Okay.
it reminds me a lot of Ireland.
Yeah. Okay.
In both scenery, people, hospitality, and driving distances. I mean, most of the top golf courses in Ireland, in the north, northwest, south, you're only hour and a half between them. So
Yeah. Wow.
it's a pretty as much as I like saying play Aussies stay in Australia to play golf, if you're looking for another option, it's a really good place to go, and you can get a lot done.
Mate, you fly to Perth in 4 hours. You fly to New Zealand in 3. I mean,
absolutely,
it's and everywhere has their own destination courses, but like you said, that different feel. It's certainly a lot further south than the mainland Australia. It's down on the same latitude as Tasmania. So again, akin to right up north in Ireland, but the climate's very sort of similar and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's mate, I ideally want to travel to New Zealand for golf and just to see those courses because I've read so much about them. Talk about let's go. And you've done, as we mentioned last time we caught up, you've done some photography work for Renaissance and Tom Doak. So Tom Doak and Renaissance are behind Tara Eadie. Talk about a bit about Tara Eadie.
Yeah. So the first time I got to visit Tara Eadie was probably around 3 to 4 years ago. I got asked to come over and do a promo video for them.
Yep.
I knew, I think as soon as I knew I was going, there was a lot of excitement building. Like my dad and I knew about it. I hadn't seen a huge amount of imagery of it. So I do remember on the phone with my dad actually looking at imagery, and we were just going, oh, geez. I did get nervous. It was probably, one of the first times I had nerves. I really, really wanted to do a good job there, and I knew I exclusive club, so sure. I did have some nerves. But again, you arrive, and you're just welcomed. So it's you're expecting this private exclusive club, but you sit there at the end of the day and you're talking to members, and Paul, the director of golf there, great guy, so welcoming. They make you feel like you're at home. You stay out, staying out in the staff quarters, and you meet all the staff. They're just all great guys. And then, back then it was CJ was the super who had come from Bandon, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Bandon.
okay. You're right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's from Bandon. Yeah. I mean, he had taken it over. The first day I got there, the weather wasn't actually very good, so I wandered out and met him. We had a chat, and he was a great guy. And it's for anyone who hasn't been there, you've just got to do it once in your life, because it's one of those places that I think if anyone ever, if someone had actually said to me, where is your favorite golf course you've shot? It's such a hard question. But as far as thinking about moments when I've been there out on a tee at sunrise or sunset and being blown away so much by the scenery and the experience, I'd have to say Tara Eadie is like well up there. I mean, both times I've been able to play it also.
Oh, good on you. Rub it in.
Yeah, mate. And the second time, like the caddy program there is unbelievable.
Oh, really?
And Steve, who runs the caddy, I was there just before the Masters. They wouldn't have been happy because I won the Masters sweep. But Steve runs an incredible caddy program there, and all of the caddies are awesome.
Wow, that's cool.
On my last shoot there, there's a great caddy there, Ruben. I had Rubes go and do some surfing for me. I think Kelly Slater had just been in town, and Rubes got to have a surf with Kelly, and they played golf, and Ruben caddied for him, and it was just I think it was Mungawai there is known for its good surf. So Ruben was out there in kind of big 6-foot waves. If you look at the promo I did for them last time, you'll see Ruben there surfing some waves. It's kind of got everything, you know.
Yeah, wow.
It's expensive to play,
Sure.
but you know, I think if it's one of those things you're going to do once in your life, you know,
Yeah,
you've just got to do it. But like the design to play it, like was awesome. Like it's you know, a lot of courses I get to go to, I am moving around quite quickly. Sometimes I don't get to play the whole course. I do try, and that's been one of those places where I've got to play, and just the whole thing has surpassed anything I've been to. You know, the course plays so beautifully. I didn't play the best golf I've ever played, but it didn't matter. You know, by the end of it, I don't even know what I shot, but just
didn't matter.
it didn't matter. It was just so enjoyable. You
So,
know, and yeah.
So okay. Let's keep with that theme. I want to pick this one a little bit because we'll take Tom Doak's done Tara Edie and Kidnappers.
Yes.
So they're both on, and like I said, I'm still learning some of the North Island, but they're both on the North Island. Is that right?
Correct.
And
yes.
they're both on the east coast of the North Island. Is that right?
No. So Kidnappers is in just south of Napier, which is the west coast.
Oh, okay, righto, got you.
Yeah. So
and it's on the cliffs.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's along the cliffs there, and I drove up to there from Paraparaumu. So you can fly into Wellington.
Right.
You can play Paraparaumu, which is probably about an hour and a half north of there. So you can play there. Then you can drive north to Napier. Okay. And then from Napier, you can cross to the east coast.
Okay, fair enough. So
yeah.
They're both. I want to pick both of these because they're very, very different. I think they're different owners anyway, but they're very different courses because you've got Kidnappers, which we've all seen the imagery of on the cliff tops, a million miles up in the sky over the ocean, and you can hit a ball off on the edge, and it takes you like 15 minutes for your ball to hit the drink. But then you have Tara Edie, which is, like you said, on the sand. It's got that surf. It's those local dune undulations, and it's very sort of, I'll say, low profile compared to what Kidnappers is. Yes. And they're very different styles of design, sure. But from a photography point of view, we as a player, you play the course, you walk 1 through to 18, and you play the holes out from tee to green. When you're out there, are you trying to get a composition of a shot for what you're trying to bring out something special? Is it something that we don't see as a golfer walking tee to green? Is it something that you try and find things that we don't often see when you're out there looking to get a shot? Yeah, or is it just whatever presents itself while you're traveling around looking at the land?
Mate, the only preparation I do for a golf course is I have this great app called Sunseeker, and you can put in an address, you can put in the course, you can look at it on Google Earth, and it'll show you the arc of the sun. Now, when you look at something and you've got the sun coming across you, it's always going to give you shadow. Yep. So, you know, a course like Tara Edie is, you know, you've got the sun that comes up over the water. You've got the water on your eastern side. So you've got the sun that comes up there, and then it sets over the mountains kind of to your west. I'm always looking for strong shots with the sun across you. But I don't necessarily plan. And I must admit, one good thing about drones is that, and especially Tara Edie, is you can sit on the little top of the clubhouse at Tara Edie. I don't do it necessarily, but you know, back in the day when you didn't have a drone, you know, you had to drive the cart everywhere. You had to shoot everything from the ground. Like it could take you, you know, to get from one corner of Tara Edie to the other corner of Tara Edie in a car could take you, you know, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So with the drone, I can sit up on the clubhouse and I can fly from one end of the course to the other end of the course, and you know, depending on how fast you want to go, in mere minutes. So
yeah, wow.
You know, it's changed everything, and I don't necessarily, my promos I plan. So like, you know, I'll have a plan in mind for a promo video that I want to get shots of 2 or 3 players,
sure,
and I want to get these shots. But mate, as far as photos go, I would pretty much call myself a freestyler. You know,
okay.
I must admit, I do wander around. If I get to a course early enough and I have some times to do a recce, I will drive around and I'll be able to see I'll look at I'll look down fairways. I'll go, okay, this is going to be great in that last hour. This is going to be great here. This is, photos into the sun can be good depending what filters and grad filters you can use, things like that. But, I would have to call myself a little bit of a freestyler sometimes.
Yeah, cool.
I don't also like looking at other people's photos. Like I don't like Googling photos of courses because I don't want to see a photo and then I want to create new photos. And I do get a lot of comments from clients that, that they're really stoked because I'm getting photos that they said they've had photographers coming for the last couple of years. And when I come, they're getting different photos. And that's a good thing for me because that's exactly what I'm trying to produce. I'm trying to produce something a little different.
Yeah.
And it is the same. Every photographer is going to give you something different as well, regardless. But yeah, I try and avoid. I think I was telling you the last job I did was, or just before Tweed, was down at the Vintage.
Yep.
I Googled the Vintage to look at a few photos, and I started seeing a heap of different photos. I kept thinking, I don't want to see all the. I want to come in fresh into this place.
Yeah.
And I did, and I'm glad I did, because when I then Googled all the photos, I could hardly see any of my angles and photos that I got. So I was really stoked. Yeah.
Very good. Very good, mate. Mate, that's, they're pretty special courses, those ones, Tara Edie Kidnappers that you mentioned in the North Island. Is there much else on the North Island that stands out, some of the big names? What else is up there?
Yeah, look, obviously north of Tara Edie, you've still then got another big one, which is Carry Cliffs.
Of course, that's probably one of the first of the big names, I suppose, wasn't it, really?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, and rightly so. Like, Cowrie's I got to play it I went over for the World Cup in New Zealand, and a mate of mine drove up there and we played, and we had the most incredible time. We played the front nine. We were the only ones playing on the day. We had all the machinery in front of us, and we had lunch, and we said to them, there's not many people out today. And they said, no, you guys are the only ones. And we were like,
so
wow. You got the green stuff out for pretty much. They're cutting
what an
the whole
experience
course for you guys. So
wow.
But we had lunch, and then we had the most beautiful weather in the morning, not a breath of wind. And as we were having lunch, we could hear this rattling noise, and the guy behind the bar said to us, mate, the wind's up. And we came out, and it was sideways rain, and it was about 60, 70 k/h wind, and it tore us apart. Like, but again, an incredible experience, experience. Yeah, you've also got Titirangi there in Auckland.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, which is just stunning. And
they do have a wonderful landscape that's just conducive to good designers and architects doing some incredible stuff with the land, don't they?
Absolutely. Well, it's Dr. Alistair there, so Doug Deco there. He's I've met Doug at the Renaissance Cup, and absolutely awesome bloke. And if you're ever there in Titirangi, please go and say good day to Doug. He's an awesome guy. Mate, it's
That's awesome.
I mean, we haven't even talked about the South Island, and look at us.
I know, and I love the landscape of the South Island. Maybe that's another conversation, mate, for another podcast. We'll see how we go there, mate. Look, okay, we've talked about the big stuff. I want to ask you, and all your travels in NZ, I want to ask you, when the airways open up again and people can start to do international travel again, and they can get over to New Zealand for golf, I want to know a recommendation from you. I want our listeners to get a recommendation from you of a golf course that flies well under the radar, that they might not have heard of, but if they go to New Zealand, you think they can't miss out. They have to put it in the list. Name us one course that's under the radar people might not know about in New Zealand.
Okay, so I'm only going to mention this course because it was only by accident that I found it. So I was over doing some work there, and I was staying with a Kiwi friend of mine's parents in Auckland, and they had asked me where I was going that day, and I was going up to shoot Gulf Harbour, another good course. and which I think has one of the most beautiful holes in the world. And the mother of my friend said to me, "Oh, where else are you shooting?" I said, "Oh, I'm heading up to Tahiti, and then if I've got some time, I'll go up to Karen." She goes, "Oh," she said, "have you ever heard of Muriwai?" And I said, "Never." I said, "Where is it?" And she goes, "Oh, it's only like 45 minutes. She says, just over the ranges west." And I thought, look, I've got an afternoon free. And I actually wasn't shooting that afternoon because the forecast was bad. So I thought I'll just drive over there and just have a look. And she said, "Oh, yeah, I'm a member there. I've been a member there for ages. It's a great little course." And I was like,
cool.
"Oh, okay, wow." So I got in the car and that afternoon and I headed out. And I kind of, you come over this beautiful, you drive through some very small little towns but then you come up to this, New Zealand's got a lot of those beautiful mountains that kind of finish right on the coastline. And kind of, I came up over the hills and I'm thinking, oh, I wonder where this course is. And I could see the signs. And anyway, anyone who's been there, you come down Muriwai Road and it literally, you come down and you hit and you look and you see down the coastline. And there's this just Muriwai Beach, and it's got very black sand there as well. And you just can look down the coast, and it's just got this beautiful links course there. And I only found it by accident. Spent an afternoon there taking some photos. Contacted the GM Andrew there and said, "Hey, look, I just got a few photos. Rest is history. I think I've done 3 shoots there now." And Andrew's a great bloke. Again, just your other quintessential. Loves his golf, loves his golf club, loves his members, and they had the last visit I was there, they were just about to hold a tournament, so got to see her in all her glory. And,
Wow.
And I think, I think if there's one, that's probably my little hidden gem, 100% my hidden gem for New Zealand. Beautifully kept, great green staff, know what they're doing, and beautiful black sand bunkers.
It's mate. I'm glad you I've as I do from time to time, and I sit there and I go, I just want some inspiration of golf courses, so I'll just raid your account on Instagram and see some of your past work. And I come across Muriwai, and I was like, what's Muriwai? Where is that? It sounds Kiwi. Obviously, it's in New Zealand. And my thing is, whenever I look at a golf course, I need to see a satellite image. I need to see where it sits on the land. And it's like you said, it's a linksy style course. It's on the coast. But when I looked at it on Google Earth, and it doesn't tell a lot, but I've learned to read a lot into satellite imagery.
Yeah.
When I looked at it on Google Earth, all I could see was these little dots that look like bunkers under construction around the golf course, because they had no color. And I'm like, what is that? And I still, in that little screen that I was looking at, I noticed that it was right on the beach, and some of the beach was in my screen, and I thought, that looks like black sand, like dark grey sand. And you've mentioned that's where it is. And I assume that's a inherent part of the coastline with the volcanic activity of the North Island in New Zealand.
It is.
That it's probably got that basalty type feel to it, and some of those, the colour is part of that. So being on the coast, their site is obviously got that inherent black, dark grey volcanic sand.
Yes.
And that their bunkers are that colour. Because I've got a segment in this podcast that I've just done, that I've just talked about, with the bunker sands and different colours that come with that. I didn't think to mention black or dark grey bunker sand, because we don't have any seriously volcanic golf courses, because we don't have active volcanoes in Australia, and we don't have golf courses built around those areas and in any of the remnant ones. So we don't have that here. I can only speak of what I've experienced here. But Muriwai has got black sand. It's such a unique thing. What is it like to look at?
Mate, it is cool. It's very, it's probably the first thing I noticed driving in, and I looked at the bunkers and thought, wow, I've never seen bunker sand that colour. And I did look into it back, and so it's called iron sand. And
right.
And that area, obviously, as you alluded to, the volcanic activity is rock deposited on the coast there. It's all in that Taranaki region.
Okay.
And the funny thing is I followed a young guy who was having a practice round for the tournament, and I've got this great shot in the promo of this young guy hitting a bunker shot. And my first experience of iron sand was that he splashed out of this bunker and completely covered me in black sand. And I think I was still finding black sand in my camera like a year later, blowing sand out and still seeing little deposits of Muriwai iron sand bunker from my camera. But it's very, very unique, and I think it gives that course just a really different look. And it's I don't know from a super's point of view, I don't know how good it is to look after, but it's from a photographer's point of view, it's so different and great.
Looking at where it is, and like I said, I don't know anything about the site itself, but with the beach being black sand, I dare say that the site itself is all that sand. So the draining properties will be, the profile is just massive. I'm sure it will drain very, very well. It's just, that's what it is when you dig a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
You're going to have this unique cut, and I think it adds a really special element. And seeing some of your images of the course, like you said, you come driving there, you come off the range heading down. So you got mountains to the east, the black sand on the coast, and the golf course in the bunkers. It's a linksy course, well kept. It looked like a really specially unique course. That's something that we certainly in Australia would never come across.
Yeah.
And it's just a 3-hour flight across the road, really.
Right. It's
so
so
get
close.
There to play
So close.
So look, mate, that's a really good tip. I'm glad you mentioned it. I hadn't heard of it apart from seeing it in your account. So it's one to pick. So anyone listening, if you're traveling to New Zealand, and if anyone's listening in New Zealand and you haven't been there you go. There's Muriwai. That's something different to experience and go out there and enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Sensational, mate. Nick, that is wonderful. Good to catch up as always. Thanks for your insights on New Zealand golf courses and some of the places to see and some of the work you've done. We love looking at your images. We can still find all your gear on Instagram, Facebook at AirSwing Media. That's right.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a little drought lately of fresh stuff for obvious reasons, but hoping that will be changing once spring hits. Really keen to get into some Aussie stuff this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, with there not going to be much travel around. As mentioned in the last chat we had, still got a lot of stuff in Asia on the cards. Don't know whether I'll be able to get over there, but yes. Hopefully, anyone out there listening, raring to go for spring.
Absolutely.
Great to chat as usual, Stevie.
Anyone looking at getting any updated video work or promotional videos or photography of the golf courses, if you're working on a course, you're a member of a course, you're an administrator of a club, think about Nick from AirSwing. He certainly loves, you can hear it in his voice, he loves doing what he does, and you can go and see some of his work. But mate, Nick, thanks for joining in on the podcast. Appreciate your comments as always and the work you've done, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Absolutely, Stevie. Great to chat. Thank you.
Love it, mate.
Thanks,
Cheers.
mate. See ya.
Thanks to Nick from AirSwing Media. Appreciate the time, Nick. So wonderful chat. And with those thoughts and images floating around in your head of playing golf in beautiful New Zealand, that brings this podcast to an end. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you got something out of the podcast. As always, please go onto the Instagram and have a look at your favorite things. Send me a message, chat away. Happy to talk about any of the places you've been to, you've seen, especially some of the stuff in New Zealand. Hope you learned something out of the Greenkeepers Shed and keeping up to date also with the news on Walking the Fairways. Give the podcast a share to your friends and subscribe away, please, so we can keep building and keep growing. No matter where you're listening on this planet, like I said in the intro, thanks for listening, and I look forward to catching up with you next time.